Hi everyone, it's Im here from the blog I Think Therefore I Teach. Welcome to your next pop of ethics, a 5-minute summary of utilitarianism according to the OCR spec. So let me set up my timer. Let me get ready, a bit of caffeine. All right, here we go. 5 minutes starting now. So, utilitarianism is created and established by a man named Jeremy Bentham. Jeremy Bentham drew upon the work of David Hume, who focused on usefulness or utility within ethics, and Hutcheson's quote, "greatest happiness to the greatest number." And what Bentham did was he combined these two ideas in order to make utilitarianism the idea of the most useful thing is happiness. That for him is the utilitarian argument. But instead of happiness for Bentham, he focused this happiness meaning more pleasure. He thought happiness meant pleasure. So he created his principle of utility, which was to maximise pleasure, minimise pain. And he focused on the hedonic calculus. The hedonic calculus was a 7-stage way of calculating your pleasure, or hedonism, pleasure. And so you follow this 7-stage process in every single act you do, hence why he is a strong act utilitarian. Every single act you do, you must apply the hedonic calculus to work out whether it will maximise pleasure and minimise pain. And if so, then it is the action that you should do. It's a teleological argument, so it is based purely on the outcome of pleasure, so it doesn't matter what you do as long as the outcome is pleasure. And then comes in Mill, John Stuart Mill. John Stuart Mill was some relation of Bentham. I think he might have been his nephew or something like that. So there was some relation there. But Mill did not agree with all of Bentham's utilitarianism. He did not like the idea that it didn't look at minorities. So it might maximise the greatest happiness and pleasure for a majority of people. But what about the minority that get left behind? So Mill didn't like the ignoring the minorities. Also for Mill, he thought that this focus on pleasure was very animalistic, very based on animal instincts. So he didn't agree with this line of logic. He didn't agree with it. So he's still a utilitarian, but he created his own utilitarian ideas. And these focus on higher and lower pleasures. So a higher pleasure is something that you need to focus on because it stimulates the mind, separate from animals. And lower pleasures are those that just stimulate the body, the needs and musts that you have, like food and sleep and drink. And so he said that the lower pleasures you should ignore. And he says in order to be clear, you need to ask a competent judge. A competent judge is someone that has experienced both higher and lower, and will help direct you towards following those higher pleasures. Mill was very, very focused on altruism. Altruism is a bit like agape, this selfless love that you need to give people. So he was very, very focused on showing altruism to other people, and he said you could do that through utilitarian approaches by looking to others and treating others as you want to be treated. So again, making links to the golden rule and Christianity. And so for him, he created his own principle of utility, which was that happiness is desired. You want to be happy. Happiness is the only thing as an end in itself. So happiness is always at the end. You want money, so you're happy. You want a family so that you are happy. You want to go on holiday so you are happy. Happiness is always the end, and the happiness of others increases your own happiness. And so for Mill, he was a weak rule. He said this rule needs to be applied to everybody, that everybody should focus on maximising happiness, focusing on higher pleasures, whilst not forgetting about the minorities. But he's a weak rule because sometimes that rules need to be broken in extreme situations. So our government, our ruling, our country is very much like a weak rule. We follow the rules, we do not murder, do not steal, but sometimes these rules or these laws have to change depending on specific situations such as self-defense. So rule utilitarianism approach Mill took, but he was a weak rule in that there was some flexibility there in his argument. How have I done? Oh, 1 minute left as well. I seem to be able to do these in 4 minutes. I'm very pleased with myself. I'm very impressed. So just a brief summary. You have Bentham, who established and created the utilitarian approach using Hume and Hutchinson's idea of utility and happiness. He focused mainly on pleasure, the idea of Maximising pleasure, minimising pain, finding this through the pleasure seeker or the hedonic calculus, the calculating of your pleasure, which you have to use. Problems with Bentham, of course, are happiness and pleasure really the same thing? One person's pleasure and another person's pain, so it's far too subjective. And the idea is that some things that are painful are bad, like childbirth. Some things that are pleasurable are good. So, like sociopaths killing somebody. So again, this is very subjective territory for Mill. He tried to avoid these problems by not focusing on the animalistic pleasures, but focusing on higher and lower pleasures, focusing on higher pleasures of the brain and the mind. But again, this becomes difficult. Oh, I think that's my time. What a noise. Shush. Oh, good. Oh, gosh, that was horrible. Oh, I'll just finish off that point. So, Mill. The difficulty with Mill is that some things become quite blurred between higher and lower. So, for example, reading a book about food is a lower pleasure because that's what animals do, but reading about it is a higher pleasure. So again, there's blurred lines. Or we don't cook like animals. You know, we have gourmet chefs, we have Michelin stars. So again, we do things differently to animals. So even though animals do eat and drink, etc., humans do it on a whole different level. So is that a higher or a lower pleasure? Thank you very much for watching, everybody. If you found this useful, give me a little thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe so that it keeps you posted on the latest videos that I do. Otherwise, thanks very much for watching, folks. Bye for now.